So I want to welcome everybody here tonight. My name is Patty Schramm. I'm the Parent Resource Coordinator and Trainer for Southwest Ohio, which includes Montgomery, Greene, Warren, and Butler counties. We are here tonight on a topic. We were talking about a series this month in September about employment, and we've been hitting on different areas of employment all month long. So tonight we have OOD, and we have a representative with WIOA, which is WIOA. We have Gabriella, Clements, and Taylor. I'm not sure if I'm going to say your name correctly at the Donato. Okay. Thank you for both of you for speaking to our parents tonight. And I believe, Gabriella, you were going to be first. I'm going to go ahead and make you, I got to find you here. I'm going to make you co-host so you can share your screen. Okay, there you go. So we'll let Gabriella go ahead and I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks. Well, let me see if I remember how to work Zoom. Let me start off there. Over where I'm from, we usually use Teams. So let's see if I remember how to do this.
So you'll have a share screen arrow kind of looking thing in your toolbar. Okay, and then you click on, and if you have a video or something, there's little boxes you click, but if you don't have any kind of video, you just click on that and then click on your presentation.
Okay, cool.
Here you go.
All right. So I guess I know how to do it then.
Very good.
All right, so my name is Gabriella Clements. I am actually with Youth Career Services. Oh, this has a time to it? Let's see. This is new. Well, let me come out. For some reason it's timed, but it's not supposed to be. Give me 1 second. Let me stop sharing this really quick. Okay, it's not doing it on here, but let's see. Okay, let's see if it does it now. Okay. Right. So I'm actually with Youth Career Services, which is formerly known as YouthWorks. That has, it's going to do it again, multiple different programs within it, one of those being WIOA Youth. WIOA actually is in a couple of different counties in Ohio. This is going to do the same thing, so I'll just turn it off. So I kind of just want to break down the programs within Youth Career Services so you kind of understand a little bit better about what I do. So WIOA is not the only program within Youth Career Services. There's actually 3 different programs within Youth Career Services. So we'll just go down the list and I'll give you a little bit of information about all 3 programs. So we'll start off with Youth Resource Center. That is the program specifically that I deal with. Although I refer out to all of these different programs, specifically, I work under Youth Resource Center. The Youth Resource Center is a one-stop shop. It serves all of Montgomery County youth and young adults between the ages of 14 to 24. So it's a very broad range of the youth and young adults that we work with. We provide pathways to attain education, employment, and health goals. So we will link our youth and young adults that come into the Youth Resource Center with different types of resources to remove any barriers, which looks different for all the different types of youth that come into the Youth Resource Center. I should backtrack a little bit. We're actually located inside of the Job Center in Montgomery County. So you can get all of these services or be referred to resources if you come down to the Job Center. So that's a little bit about the Youth Resource Center. We're going to go a little bit more in depth in it in just a second. But I just wanted to give you an overview of some of the programs within Youth Career Services as well. So there is Youth Career Services 365, which is formerly known as YouthWorks. That is our employment program for youth in school youth 14 to 18 plus. So that provides a work experience. It also provides life skill management skills as well, and provides that linkage to different work experiences. So once the youth does graduate from school, they have some type of idea or pathway into the workforce. And then last but not least, that we have our CCMEP WIOA Youth Program, and we'll go into a little bit about what CCMEP is, because through our transition of YouthWorks to Youth Career Services, our funding has actually changed, which has provided us a little bit more access to funding to serve our youth a little bit deeper than just the work experience level. So WIOA Youth is basically like Youth Career Services, but we contract out to different vendors for that. So that population is more of the out of school youth, meaning they haven't attained their high school diploma or an equivalent, a GED. And they have that extra barrier because what we do know, in order to get better employment, I should say, you kind of have to have a high school diploma or a GED. If you're wanting to gain access to a better living wage, you kind of have to have a little bit more training and experience. Therefore, we see an out of school youth that has an extra barrier to employment. So we have that program specifically for them. So on to Youth Career Services, a little bit more in depth. Since the inception in 1999, Montgomery County Business Services, which used to be Development Services, it has now since transitioned to Business Services. YouthWorks program has provided employment for in-school youth 14 to 18 plus. We like to say plus because we are seeing a bigger population of youth that don't graduate at 18. So that doesn't necessarily mean they cannot participate in our program. We'll look at that case by case to see if it's necessary for them to go to our WIOA Youth program or to our summer employment program. But that program is for 14 to 18 plus who reside in Montgomery County. When YouthWorks was first implemented, we only had 25 students. And if you look at the slide next, we have actually grown tremendously. We service over 1,200 youth at this point. So we could have anywhere from 10 to 1,200 students working in the summer. So at any given time, and it is now a year-round program. Therefore, we always have kids working for us. So we are always looking into different pathways, talking to our youth to kind of figure out what their pathway is. So we do something called the IOP, Individualized Opportunity Plan, and that really sets up different goals for the youth. So they have a set plan when they graduate from high school. So in 2016, the Comprehensive Case Management Employment Program was launched. So that's what we call CCMEP. This program serves youth 16 to 24 through TANF funds or WIOA, which is actually Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. But in 2017, the state of Ohio law was amended and creating a new CCMEP eligibility for 14 to 24. So that age really broadened up for our population to serve more youth, because what we know is kids are having trouble when they get into high school. So CCMEP is a case management program. So not only are we providing them with a work experience, but we're also providing them with a job coach that is going to follow them through their high school career. That job coach is going to be there to support them and provide any supportive services they may need, which we call our 14 elements of service. which we'll look a little bit more about that in just a second. But they're really there to be a coach to them, to provide any resources they may have, to link them over to the Youth Resource Center if they are not able to link them to a resource to remove the barrier. So that's where I come in. So I get a lot of my referrals, not only from community youth, any youth in the age range of 14 to 24 can come to the Youth Resource Center. But when they're provided that job coach will follow up with them every 30 days to kind of figure out what's going on with them. We're currently in a pandemic right now. So what we have seen is our youth had a hard transition from being virtual back into the classroom. So that's where the job coach really comes in to see, well, what do you need? How can I help you and assist you to make sure you're, one, continuing to stay in school and also being getting the grades that you need to complete school as well. So having CCMEP has actually really helped us provide more supportive services to our youth. We know tutoring is always very much needed. So that's also a resource that we help provide or link our youth to as well. So it's very important that we receive those dollars because it opens up the gateway to a lot of other resources as well. Okay. So as a result, Montgomery County Youth Works Summer Employment Program, like I said, is now Youth Career Services 365, or we like to shorten it. We love our abbreviations, so it's YCS 365. So again, it's now a CCMEP program. So we talk a little bit about serving low-income families, but that does not necessarily mean someone over income can't apply for the program. It's open to any youth in that age range in the Montgomery County area. So if you are above the medium income level, then we will still service you. It's just a different pot of money that we use to service you. So it is, again, open to any youth 14 to 18 plus in the Montgomery County area that's in school. Again, we service over 1,200 youth and we partner with over 500 businesses. So we have a job developer that continuously goes out to the community to make sure we have the businesses to provide those job readiness skills and those work experiences for our youth. Through this program, the youth will have the opportunity to participate in work experience sessions such as summer, fall, and winter. So they would have to go through a process of an application, parent orientation, job readiness orientation for the youth. But the starting time for them will always be the summer. That gives them time to kind of relax from school, kind of wind down, and then understand the expectations of the program. Again, we follow the youth throughout their high school career. So it is our expectations that they are okay with us checking in with them every 30 days and then doing the recertification. We are state funded, so we have to do a recertification for the youth, which would entail us getting income from them every 60 days, or I'm sorry, every 6 months. So there is a little bit of a process to get into the program, but it is a great benefit for our youth participating in the program. So just a program goal is to assist youth in making a successful transition to employment and further their education. I'd like to go a little bit more in depth with that. Not only is it education, because what we do know is not all youth decide that they want to go to college, but this includes maybe going into a trade program, maybe going into the military, going directly into the workforce, job training, whatever that may be. We want to make sure that they're successful in that plan and that they have a plan before they graduate. So the goal is to support them in that. So we do have our 14 elements of service. So when we talk about that, we're talking about tutoring. If that youth isn't doing well in school, we like to refer them over to recovery programs, alternative education programs. We partner with Sinclair Fast Forward for those types of resources. So if we know that a youth is not going to be doing well in school, we like to say, okay, well, what is the plan? Because what we don't want the plan to be is for you to drop out. There are other resources out there for you to make sure that you get your high school diploma. So that's where I come in with those resources. So some other things, we provide financial literacy. We partner with Fifth Third to do our financial literacy. Because once you start getting money, we need to know how to use it, right? So they come in and do an awesome job at helping our youth learn how to spend their money, save their money, what the future looks like. So we love that component of our program as well. There's a bunch of other things, but I won't go through all of them. I think you guys are going to have access to the PowerPoint once you're done. But if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to stop me. But if you are interested in that program, definitely reach out to us. The application is actually online. So if you have any youth that want to apply, you just have to go to thejobcenter.org for that and put in an application. And then we'll reach out to you to make sure everything is correct on the application. And then we'll set you up for a parent orientation and a job readiness. So once you go through that, you're all the way in the program. And then we'll start you off for the summer session. What I would say is do not wait until the last minute to sign up because it's a very popular program. And we start normally our process for the summer very early on. So you can access the application at any time. It is an open enrollment program. So you can do the application now to get prepared for the summer. But our high peak time usually is about February or March, which is when a lot of our applications start rolling in. So don't wait till the last minute for that. Definitely reach out to us if you have any questions about the application. All right. The next part is our Youth Resource Center. And again, that is our one-stop shop center. So the whole point of the Resource Center is to make sure that a youth that comes in with barriers does not have to go to multiple locations to get resources. I think I have a question. Is there something comparable in Warren County, and do you work with those parts time in college? Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure about Warren County, and I can do some research about that. And do you work with those part-time in college? Absolutely. So again, the Youth Resource Center goes up to 24. So even if that youth doesn't necessarily qualify for Youth Career Services, they can still get resources over at the Resource Center. So absolutely, yes. So again, the whole point of it is to make sure we connect you all to the resources that are needed to remove any type of barriers that you may have. So that means me going out to the community and saying, hey, I have a need for this youth. We might not have it on our menu of services, which I'll show you guys in a bit, but we're constantly rotating resources in and out because we'll find that one thing might be a barrier in the past, but might not necessarily be a barrier now. But my job is to go out into the community and make sure we have those resources. If we identify a need, then we'll definitely reach out to service providers to provide that resource. So typically what will happen is a youth will come into the Youth Resource Center and say, hey, I have this need, but then I do my assessment and we find out that there's a whole bunch of underlying stuff as well that may be more important than that initial need now. One of those good examples is housing. A youth will come in and say, hey, I want to get back in school. Though that is actually very important for you to get back in school, we know that if you don't have your basic needs met, then you're not going to go to school. You're going to be so stressed out about school. You're not necessarily going to be able to be successful in that. So I'll sit down and be like, hey, what's more important right now? And I'm very good with meeting youth where they're at. If they say, hey, education is more important right now, then okay, that's fine. We'll start there. But if I find that something like housing is a big need, we'll definitely sit down and talk about that. So I do an assessment with them, the same assessment that Youth Career Services does. I do that same assessment with our youth as well, to make sure we're covering all of our bases when it comes to employment, health, education. So that is a little bit about the Youth Resource Center. This is our flow chart for the Youth Resource Center, but I really want to get to our menu of services, which is kind of small. I'm sorry. So the first thing we have is behavioral health. So we will contract out or refer over to places like South Community. If we find that a youth has a housing component and wanting some type of behavioral services as well, we'll refer over to what we call Daybreak. I don't know if any of my Montgomery County people know what that is, but it is one of the only youth shelters, youth and young adult shelters in the Montgomery County area. So they have a bunch of different resources. Not only are they an emergency shelter, but they have on-site apartments as well. So they have the housing component, they have the behavioral health component, and then they also have employment services as well. So we like to get all of those resources in one. So we definitely refer over to that for behavioral health and housing as well. If you come down to the Youth Resource Center or Youth Career Services, we again are located at the Job Center. If you come into the Job Center, there is a St. Vincent's de Paul, right in the middle of our parking lot. That actually has Five Rivers Health Center on it, which is our homeless clinic. They have been gracious enough to do any of our free physicals for us. So if a youth comes in and says they don't have a primary care doctor, I'll do the application with them. The great thing about being at the Job Center is we have a direct contact with Job and Family Services. So not only can I get them that physical over at Five Rivers, but I can also connect them to getting medical, cash assistance, food assistance, all of those things I can do an application for directly in my office. So then they, one, have their physical and can potentially get referred over to a primary care doctor, but then two, they have the opportunity to go ahead and get their medical insurance taken care of. Looks like we have a question. Okay, there's the link. So yes, we do have an opportunity to get physical health needs taken care of as well. Being that we provide those resources, one of the resources that we found that Youth Career Services needed was physicals. So Dayton Children's also has provided us free physicals for work permits. So if your youth decides to participate in our program and you don't have a primary care doctor, we try to make it as easy as possible for you to come in to get a work permit physical. We don't ask for any insurance or anything like that. You solely just have to come in and have your parent or guardian with you to get that physical, and our nurse practitioner will sign off on the work permit, which is huge if you don't have medical insurance and you don't have time to look for a primary care doctor. And a lot of families that participate in our program need that extra money, unfortunately, from their youth participating in the program. So we found that it was a huge need. So we definitely partnered with Dayton Children. So they come over. Everything is free of charge. They have been gracious enough to get insurance to be able to come over to do it for us. So it's an awesome resource for us and for our youth. It looks like there is a question. Can other counties use that service. Which service are you referring to?
I think they want to, I think parents that are coming from, or families from other counties, how would they connect with a program like yours, like the Y or the WIOA, WIOA?
So for WIOA, and that was going to be my next thing we talk about. For WIOA, so specifically for my county, and I can only kind of talk for my county. But as far as your county, you can go to typically this resources in like the job center, whatever your job center may be, or business services or workforce. Typically those are in one. If you are interested in WIOA, you can go to those services and they'll refer you. So for our WIOA, and we can kind of jump down to it really quick. So for our WIOA, again, you would come through the Youth Resource Center, but there's what's called the Ohio Means Jobs, and that's typically the holder of WIOA. So we do have an Ohio Means Jobs part of our business services as well. So for us specifically to get to our WIOA, you would come through the Youth Resource Center to get those services. Now, again, if you're out of county, you might want to look at Greene County. You can just type into Google Greene County WIOA providers, and those will come up that way. But I believe through Greene County, they go through Ohio Means Jobs. So if you're looking for that, definitely go through Ohio Means Jobs to get your provider for WIOA.
And then I think the other question too, counties using the service may, referring to your youth center, is that just centrally for Montgomery County, or will like Greene County or another county be able to attend or join?
So if a youth comes in to our center, we service Montgomery County youth, but we won't turn any youth away. So let me say that. The only thing about that is when we refer over to different resources, such as the job center applying for benefits, you have to go through your county to apply for benefits, right? So there may be barriers that way when it comes to county lines and applying for different services. But again, we'll try to do whatever we can. Even if a provider called me right now or a family right now, I would definitely look into it for you. We don't turn anyone away. So that's the great thing about the Youth Resource Center. So for specifically WIOA Youth for Montgomery County and Youth Career Services, there is a residency component to it. So you would have to be in Montgomery County Youth to participate in WIOA Youth or Youth Career Services, and you would have to provide information about what county you stay in. So yes. Again, WIOA Youth is for any out of school youth 16 to 24 that has not received their high school diploma or GED. We're going to connect them to a job coach that is going to provide them an extra level of support. So that extra level of support may be job training. It may also be getting them connected to a credit recovery program or a GED program. Both are providers, which is Urban League, Miami Valley Urban League, and Yes for Youth. They provide job training. They provide GED classes on site. They go into credit recovery schools to have that component as well. So we have some great providers that provide WIOA Youth for us. Again, if you wanted to be directed to any of those services, my contact information is on there. The 496 number goes directly to me for any resources. And then if you needed any questions about Youth Career Services 365, you would want to contact the 224 number as well. So both our emails are on there and our contact information. Looks like we have a question. Okay, you put it up there. Thank you for putting that up there, Michelle. If you ever had any questions about the resources that we provide or getting into WIOA Youth, definitely come into the Youth Resource Center and talk to us a little bit. So you basically can think of WIOA Youth as the same as Youth Career Services, just for out of school youth. So that is the main difference. The youth hasn't necessarily completed their education, so they need a little bit of extra help. So they're still going to get the same resources and 14 elements of service, along with that job readiness training as well. So in a work experience, paid work experience, can't forget paid, because kids come on in when they hear money. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me. My email is on there. You can give me a call as well.
Thank you, Gabriella. If you can put also your contact in the chat box, maybe. We
Okay.
added we found the Job and Family, the WIOA, and we put the Ohio Means Jobs link in there. If there's any other
Okay.
ones that you mentioned that maybe is not in your slide,
Okay.
feel free to add that to the chat box so
Sure.
we can
Sure.
reference that as
Let
well.
me, see
Does
if I can-
if anybody has any more questions for Gabriella, we'll go ahead and move on to Taylor with OOD. If there is any more questions. Okay, great. Feel free, we'll have time at the end. You'll be able to ask if you think of something later, or just jump it in, put in there in the chat box. So, okay, go ahead, Taylor. I believe I put you as co-host, so you should be able to, you should be able to share your screen. Just
All right, so I just want to verify you guys can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Let me just pull the chat up there. Hold on here. We're gonna try to do this presentation. We'll see if this actually works. So. All right, so again, I am Taylor D. Donato. I am the transition counselor, or OTSP counselor, with Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. I actually am the counselor for Miami and Shelby counties, but we do have transition counselors in all of the counties in Ohio. So some of you might be familiar with our Montgomery County counselors, Lois or Rachel, Keena out of Greene County, or many others throughout the state. So before I jump into transition services, I'll just kind of talk about OOD in general. OOD is the vocational rehabilitation program in the state of Ohio. So we pull down state and federal funding to help individuals with disabilities and find employment. So the goal is to prepare for and gain employment and maintain that employment in any way needed. So we do have specialized kind of little pockets in our agency. For instance, I'm under the Bureau of Vocational Rehabilitation and the then transition, but we also have counselors that work with individuals with visual impairments, that may be deaf or hard of hearing. And then we also have individuals that work with adults that might be in the DD population as an adult, or also jobs for recovery. So I'm just going to jump into transition services, but I wanted everybody to just have an overview of OOD as a general agency, as we work with students and young adults, but also adults of any age. So I will just kind of move on. All right, so I just wanted to start off by explaining what OTSP means. So you might hear counselors such as myself or other transition counselors mention that we're OTSP. That just stands for Ohio Transition Support Partnership. We have partnered our agency has partnered with the Ohio Department of Education to dedicate counselors to work with students that have IEPs in school, documented disabilities, to help really, like channel our funding so that those students have that extra support to help them prepare throughout their schooling for that transition out of school into adulthood. It's mostly to improve those outcomes for those students. So we wanted to start engaging with the students in schools earlier on. So now starting at age 14. So I don't know if you noticed when I saw the poll of a few of you under the age of 14, I perked up. I think that's fantastic. I would love to work with kids even younger than 14 because it's never too early to start talking about how to prepare for employment or the future. And we try to focus all of our services and what we provide for the students based on evidence-based predictors. So for instance, a study found that youth who participate in transition programs or partner with agencies with 2 or more paid jobs during high school are more likely to be engaged in post-school employment or education. So this OTSP partnership really facilitates that involvement in the earlier ages and provides more opportunities for work experience for students. So transition, a lot of us throw that word out as if it's just expected, you know what it is. So I like to always break that down. I am just one part of the transition team. So it's a multi-agency process. We all like to collaborate with one another to help the students and families just move throughout that transition or move throughout high school or even middle school into that adulthood and just helping figure out what that looks like for each student. So we want to make sure that we're preparing individuals for that real world as they exit high school. So myself, what I provide, again, I work with students on IEPs, so I like to attend IEP meetings. Whether or not I work with the student and family yet, I'm happy to participate in IEP meetings just to kind of have that thought process thrown into the mix regarding employment and obviously and provide that input. But I also work with the schools, but also County Board of DDs, so SSAs, and I work closely together. I always explain it to my individuals that I'm employment, so I am everything that involves that, and then I like to connect them with resources outside of that, such as the county board or mental health counselors or whatever they need, such as Gabriella, to help facilitate that employment. Because like she said earlier in her presentation, there are a lot of things that you won't be successful in employment if we don't have some of these other things figured out as well. So that's another thing that I like to help my students and families with. So we're going to see if this will work. But this is just a video that OOD produced.
Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. You might think that the world of work is far off for your student. But starting to get a plan in place now will set them up for a successful future. We'll be there every step of the way. We're Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, the state agency that empowers Ohioans with disabilities through employment, disability determinations, and independence. Our vocational rehabilitation counselors work as a team with students, parents, teachers, community partners, and employers to help students gain the skills they need to prepare for in-demand careers. Starting at age 14, students can receive services including career exploration, paid work experiences, job coaching, and guidance on how employment may impact disability benefits. High school and career tech schools in Ohio have assigned OOD vocational rehabilitation counselors to help students get an early start in exploring career possibilities. Let's all work together to help students discover their career path. Don't delay. Connect students today. For more information or to download an application for services, visit ood.ohio.gov/students-14. Brought to you by Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that video there. If you weren't able to hear the sound or had trouble viewing it, it is on our website, which I'll make sure you guys have. I'll put that in the chat at the end here, and then I'll also make sure that's it's in the PowerPoint. I'll make sure that's distributed to you guys. So with vocational rehabilitation, competitive employment is the goal. So our hope is for individuals with disabilities to be able to be out in our communities, contributing to our societies, just like you or I would. So we want to help them find those jobs where, you know, they're being paid for their skills. So we're looking for minimum wage or higher, integrated employment, competing with others for the job, not just given the job because they have a disability. And then we want them to meet employer standards. So that's another piece I like to bring up with my families when I'm talking to them or when I'm working with the schools, is we need to understand that just like you or I will have to meet employer expectations, so will all of the students that we work with. So we want to help train them to actually meet those expectations and standards and prepare them so it's not a shock once they're out of high school. So really fast, just some of the benefits of employment. Sometimes I, you know, especially at the age of 14 and 15, we're like, we're not sure about employment yet. I just like to start, you know, throwing out there that employment really helps individuals just gain that identity. They learn these new skills. They have this sense of accomplishment. It's a great way for them to get out there and make new friends. It is a way of social engagement in their communities, and it just keeps you happier, and evidence shows that it can actually help you live longer. So it's just a couple of the benefits of employment for students and parents to keep in mind as they're preparing for, you know, life after school. So I created just a quick breakdown, and I have another slide. The next slide will also kind of demonstrate this, but just a quick glance of how OOD services work and just the flow of our services in general. This is for students and for adults. Students, we typically are with them much, much longer out of the gate, but just so that everybody knows, we do require an application and an intake where we fill out paperwork and things like that. And then we move through this process, and we have certain timelines that we do have to meet. We're held to federal and state standards. So we definitely want to make sure we're meeting those timelines. I'm going to move on to the next slide though, because it has a really fantastic breakdown of our process, just with some really great points to look at. And so this is, again, for students and adults. So we would start out with that referral, which can be made by anybody. The student can refer themselves, parents can refer, schools, SSAs, anyone at the job center or a mental health counselor or a doctor, anyone can make a referral to OOD. They can either, you know, reach out to their local office. I have people that reach out to me directly in my counties, or, you know, reaching out to the counselor in your counties. Can also apply online. But we start out with that application and intake where we fill out and review a lot of the documentation for OOD. And then we also get to know you. I like to ask my students some questions just to get to know them, some of their strengths, and you know where their interests lie. It's always a good starting point. From there, I usually gather the documentation from schools such as the IEP or ETR, along with any medical documentation or documentation from the county board to determine eligibility. So as you'll see on the slide there, we have 4 eligibility criteria. They have to have a documented disability. It must make it hard to get or keep a job. I kind of assume that for most of my students. They must be able to benefit from our services and require our services. Again, those, I typically assume that. Who couldn't benefit from some help to find employment or gain skills for employment? We typically make those decisions in under 30 days. We have up to 60 for federal requirements, but OOD has made it a goal to make it under 30. Typically, our counselors have that done within 2 to 3 weeks. And then from there, once we determine eligibility, you'll get a letter in the mail or via text or email if it's delivered electronically. And then from that point, we have 90 days to develop your first individualized plan for employment. So these are just a great guideline for our students and families to see the progression of services. I like to say it that way because it can change. With students, it definitely changes, especially if we start at age 14. You'll see us kind of migrate over the years as we get closer to that graduation timeframe, maybe a different job goal, or maybe we've switched out services over that period of time. But it's just a great guideline to see where we are now and where we want to get to. And again, we have 90 days to develop that first plan. After that, we can modify the plan at any time. If we don't modify it in a year, we do annual reviews every year just to review the plan, see if we need to make any adjustments, things like that. If there are new services we've developed, we discuss those, any changes, and so on. So again, we move into that VR services piece. So once that plan is in place, we look at all sorts of services. So listed on here are the adult traditional services that students utilize throughout high school and once they've graduated. And in a little bit, I'll talk about specific transition services. But these services are truly to help the students learn about employment, gain skills for employment, and just discover where their true interests lie, and then help them find that job once they are out of high school. Then obviously our services are time limited, so we do close the case. Hopefully it is successful once they've graduated. We've found fantastic employment for them. They're happy, they're meeting expectations, they have all of their other supports in place, and we've followed with them through a period of at least 90 days just to make sure that they are stable in that job. We would close their case for that time being. I always tell students, you might need to come back if you need more assistance in the future with a different job, or you're moving on to that next step. They can always come back to OOD in that sense. So just quick overview of OOD, and this is a handout that I did send along, so this is available for you. I don't expect anyone to memorize this, but it's a fantastic breakdown of just our general timeline from start to finish.
There was a question, Taylor, of what is the best way to request an OOD representative to attend, like, the IEP meetings, especially the ones on Zoom now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I would talk to the school. I would talk to the intervention specialist, or you could always reach out to the special ed director for your school district. They typically have a liaison counselor, if not an OTSP counselor, that they can contact to invite to the meetings. Or you can always reach out on our website. We do have phone numbers listed and email addresses listed for contacts for each of our regional offices, and that can help get you to the correct person or transition counselor that can come and be part of that meeting for you. That's a great question, though.
Thank you.
All right. So just to breakdown of some of the traditional services that my students and adults have access to. So we provide vocational guidance. We try to talk about different employment opportunities and where, you know, the individual's true interests lie, along with their skills and abilities and any barriers. We can also help look for that job. We can offer support on the job, such as a job coach. We also look at rehab technology. So this could be, say your student may find that they need a communication device in school, but that might not follow them outside of school once they take their diploma. That's something that our agency can assist with if necessary, to provide the assessment to see if that device is still appropriate or maybe a different device, and then help purchase that if needed. So that's also a piece that we can assist with, along with maybe further educational training. We do discuss post-secondary, trade schools, or on-the-job training, maybe apprenticeships that we can support. But those are just a few things that we commonly use for our individuals with disabilities. And now for the transition services. So these next couple of slides, I'm specifically talking about students ages 14 and up that are in school. That could be anyone that has deferred their diploma as well. So these services are really geared towards students and that exploration piece. So we understand that students might not be ready for a job in high school. They might be, which is fantastic, but we really want to help them explore employment and what that looks like. So we have services created specifically for them, such as career development activities, pre-ETs, which I'll touch on in a minute. And then some of the ones that everybody talks about are summer youth experiences for students. So that's career exploration and work experience. So our summer youth career exploration is a fantastic way to dip the toes in the water, to learn about employment, prominent employers in the students' specific areas or counties, and also just kind of learn about what's expected from an employee. You know, what is your boss going to expect from you? How do you talk to your peers and other employees? What does customer service mean, and what does that look like? Those types of things. That is a shorter service during the summer, so it's roughly 3 weeks. It is unpaid, but it's a great way for students just to kind of get that first look at employment with peers out in the community. The next one would be the summer youth work experience. Again, just for students. It's roughly 4 to 5 weeks long. It is paid out in the community in typically small groups or one-on-one with a job coach. So it's a great time for them to gain basic work skills, learn about, you know, just how to show up on time, making sure we're dressed appropriately, how we interact with our peers, getting that hands-on work experience. And it's a great way for us to see maybe some things we need to work on. It's fantastic to lead right into a new school year with that report that we get from the work experience, to talk with the team at the school to see if there are some things we can work on throughout the school year. And then we also have non-permanent job development as well. And so this is something where if a student has demonstrated that they are ready to find that entry-level part-time job while they're still in high school, we can help them with that as well. And on top of that, we can also help providing a job coach. We can help them look at job readiness training programs such as Project Search or other career center programs, or talk to them about post-secondary, like I mentioned before. Just a few things that we can assist with there. And then I also want to talk about pre-employment transition services. So these are specific services that the federal government and Department of Education have kind of worked together to develop. And then our state developed these a little bit further for our students. So these are for any students that are potentially eligible for OOD or already have an OOD case. So you might have a student who's 14 who doesn't work with OOD yet, that might be interested in utilizing some of these shorter services to learn about employment. When I say potentially eligible, they have to be 14 years old. They have to demonstrate a need for services, and then also have a documented disability. There is an application on our website for this, or if you have further questions, I highly recommend reaching out to the liaison counselor, or you can reach out to me myself and we can talk about it more in depth. But these pre-ET services, again, are shorter in duration, more class-like, if you will, and just basic overviews of job exploration. So looking at different career options and helping the students identify those, or introduction in self-advocacy, talking to students about how to, stand up for themselves and just understand their rights and responsibilities as a member of society. Again, these are fantastic services to help these students learn about employment and what that looks like as they go into adulthood. And then I did want to touch on our providers out in the community. So a lot of these services, our summer youth, our pre-ETs, our job development and coaching, we work with providers out in the communities. You can look on our website for providers that are in your counties, so that you can familiarize yourself with them, learn about what services they do provide, look at their scorecard to see how they've done, how many students do they work with, or how many individuals have they placed in jobs for our agency over the years. What kind of individuals do they work with? Is there a specific group that they tend to work with? Some of our providers work with transition age students more often than not, others not as much. So it's just something to look at and be aware of as you're working with an OOD counselor, is that you'll be working with the providers in the community that you live in. And then case closure, again, I'll just touch on this briefly, but our services are time limited. The goal is that we help individuals find that employment, stick with them for 90 days and make sure they're stable on the job, discuss any of the further supports that they need for that job, and just make sure that they are going to be successfully employed. There are times when we close cases unsuccessfully. Again, our services are time limited and voluntary. We have to monitor and make progress towards an employment goal. Students, I will mention, we're with them a lot longer than our adults. So we're typically, if we can't reach the family, we're reaching out to the schools or support agencies that they might work with, just to make sure everything is okay and see if we can maintain that contact so that we can help the student reach their goals. And then just helpful referral information or something to bring to the initial interview would be, sending along the IEPs or ETRs or any other school records, psych evaluations or records from county boards or DD, anything like that. That always helps counselors to identify, the student's strengths and abilities, but also identify the barriers, so we can ask more questions about those to see if what services we might be able to help the student and family with over the time we're with them. And then you'll notice on here, I did also put if, the student receives SSI or SSDI, to bring that as well, or at least let the counselor know they receive that. That is because they're automatically eligible or presumed eligible for OOD services if they receive SSI or SSDI. And we also offer a service to review those benefits to help understand them and how work would impact those benefits and just some of the incentives of working and receiving SSI or SSDI. If you have to contact anyone, you can reach out to me. I know that I work in Shelby and Miami counties, and I didn't see anybody from those counties here, but that is a-okay. I'm happy to answer any questions for anybody. I did put my information here, and I will share it in the chat. Our website has come a long way. I highly recommend going on there, not only for students, but for adults as well. If you want to look at students specifically, it's under the students 14 tab, and I can help navigate to that as well if you needed. But it is just a great place for a lot of resources. So a lot of our handouts, contact information, and wonderful videos that our team has made will be on our website. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here.
Thank you. Thank you, Taylor. I just want to make sure, the families, I know there was a question about, having how to make contact with an OOD counselor to attend an IEP. And I can't, with all the presentations, when looking back on your presentation, it is so important. Like if you can get someone involved, the sooner the better, because that gives OOD a chance to get familiar with your child or students.
Exactly. And I see the chat here. Michelle's put in several of the counselors for the different counties that are represented here. We are all happy to assist. We're happy to attend IEP meetings for families if we're not already involved, or if the school hasn't invited us. Sometimes, as intervention specialists come in and out of schools, sometimes they have so much going on that we're the last people on their mind. So feel free to contact us to join those. Who's the counselor for Butler? Brittany Bear is actually the OTSP counselor right now for Butler County, and it looks like her email address is up in the chat as well. And
we can repost it. Yeah, we'll repost it.
Yeah. I do see another question. If OOD case is closed for someone, they need assistance in the future. Yes, it is absolutely easy to start a new case. That's one of those things. An individual can apply to OOD at any time, 14 and up, anytime throughout their life. It is easy enough. You can either go online to the website, you can fill out the application on there and submit it there, and they will find out what county it needs to go to, what age group, if there's a specific counselor it needs to go to, they will do all of that. Or you can always call a local office, or my favorite, I always tell students when we're, maybe they found their first job and I'm stepping out, they can call me in the future if they need to reopen a case or start a new case. And if I can't reopen it for them, I'll make sure I send them in the right direction and get them connected to the correct counselor. So any of us are happy to assist. Another question, if received. Yes, so it is still the same. We would still fill out the application. So the question was, if we receive SSI or SSDI, is the application process the same? Yes. The individual would still have to fill out the application. We would still do the initial interview, filling out the OOD paperwork, but that would be something that most counselors or caseload assistants are going to ask in that initial interview. If you receive SSI, and they would let you know that our system will verify it real quick once we open the case, and then you'd be presumed eligible based on receiving the SSI or SSDI. Once you're presumed eligible, we still have to gather the documentation, such as IEP and ETR or medical records to finish that eligibility, but you're presumed eligible at that point. And I don't know if I have ever come across an individual that was presumed eligible that later on was not determined eligible. But other than that, it's the exact same process.
Okay, I don't see any more questions in the chat. So with that, I'm going to end the recording, and then we're going to open it up. So for those who didn't want to type, you can feel free to speak directly with our presenters. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you again for Taylor and Gabriella for presenting tonight during our SALT talks. And I'll go ahead and close out this recording. 1 second. I have a hard time talking and doing both at the same time. Sorry.